Hi, this is Jacob Solbucks, and we're here to talk about being gay in the rave scene in the 90s. Being gay in the rave scene in the 90s wasn't as cute as you'd think. The 90s were a time when LGBTQ rights were still very much repressed, and the rave scene, while known for its inclusivity and acceptance, still had its own set of challenges for those who identified as gay. In this essay of Raver Talks discussion, we'll explore difficulties faced by gay individuals in the rave scene in the 90s versus how it was perceived. I'll briefly give some context for those who have forgotten or just don't know. Setting up what would become the 90s, house music essentially came from the gay scene. The sound emerged from the queer, black, and Latin club cultures of New York and Chicago in the late 70s and early 80s. The 90s was a decade of immense cultural change, especially when it came to acceptance and visibility in the queer community and the rave scene. One of the biggest challenges gay individuals faced in the rave scene in the 90s was the lack of inclusion. There was still this prevailing sense of heteronormativity that made it difficult for gay individuals to feel fully accepted and embraced. The rave scene was known for its hedonistic atmosphere with the pulsing beats and the colorful lights and the sense of freedom, but many raves were actually attended by straight individuals, and gay attendees often felt ostracized or like they couldn't really be themselves. But navigating this world could also be very isolating and complex. A sense of respect to their face, but ridicule behind their backs. Despite these challenges, for many gay people, the rave scene provided a sense of community and belonging. The rave scene was the hippie movement of the 90s. Love, acceptance, freedom, unity, peace, all the same tropes, just different music. But specifically in the rave scene, the queer celebrities of the time, the DJs, the party promoters, and they kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of others to live their own true lives. Some of these influential figures were Frankie Knuckles, Larry LeVon, Ron Hardy, Danny Tenaglia, Honey Dijon representing the black trans community, of course DJ Kyoki, Club Kid Movement, Mike Nicisiano, David Mancuso, David Morales, DJ Irene, so many, Carl Craig, DJ Dan, Derek Carter, Felix the House Cat, who, by the way, is employed in some shit right now. His name's going to be coming up with that Diddy shit. Specifically, in interviews and articles, both Derek Carter and DJ Dan openly spoke about their experiences as gay men in the rave scene. They discussed the challenges they faced, discrimination they encountered, but also the sense of community and acceptance they found within the dance music world. Their stories served as inspiration for many queer individuals who looked up to them as role models. Now, when it came to the style and the clothing and what you wore if you were a queer person in the 90s in the rave scene, there were different levels. From what you wore dictated very much the norms of what it was to be masculine or feminine, and it was a dead ringer for what you preferred or what you liked, or maybe you didn't even know. You had your bros who dressed in straight, preppy looking clothes. They looked like they came out of a JCPenney catalog. They definitely looked like they were straight, but maybe worked in a law office, or they were an accountant or something, but they had baggy pants usually. Then you have your next level of ravers who got a little bit more colorful with it, maybe a couple of beads or a glow stick here or there, a toy hanging, maybe some Mickey gloves or a wonky, funny, kooky hat. Then you had your next level where you get to like the candy kids, the maybe just hardcore ravers that are just decked out. The candy kids specifically, most of them were gay or close to it or open-minded. They would wear the furry pants and dress like a cartoon character fully, or actually have makeup on and glitter a little bit. Also, the candy kids were saturated in saccharine happiness, overjoyed feelings. Going to the next category, club kids. Now, I'd say they were probably the most gay queer of groups. Their clothing identified were basically pre-drag queens, early drag queens. They did weird makeup, tight clothing, over-the-top fashion. Check out my video on Club Kids, where I talked about that previously as well. They were definitely the most queer of all these groups, these 4 groups that I listed. Now, overall, the perception of being gay in the 90s was complex and multifaceted, so throwing in all the heightened craziness of the rave scene in the 90s just made things so much more complicated. But if there's any place to be gay, this is where you had your best chances back in the 90s rave scene for a queer individual in your youth, trying to figure out the world, struggling, confused. This has been Raver Talk's discussion of what it was like to be gay in the 90s in the rave scene. Stay tuned next week as we explore more controversial, sensational, fun topics about the rave scene in the 90s.